The barn burned against the night sky like a doorway into hell. Inside those flames, Emmett Holloway was calling my name. His voice cut through the roar of the fire, desperate, breaking. Silas! Silas! I cannot move! I charged through the burning doorway. Smoke filled my lungs like hot tar, the heat pressed against my skin, trying to peel it away layer by layer. I found Emmett pinned beneath a massive fallen beam, his legs crushed flat, dark blood spreading through the straw beneath him. I seized the beam with both hands, pulled until my muscles screamed, pulled until the skin on my palms tore and bled. The beam did not shift, not 1 inch. Leave me! Emmett's voice had dropped to a whisper. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. Silas, please, get yourself out. The roof above us groaned like a dying animal. I saw the crack spreading across the burning timber. Then it came down. Something massive struck my back. The world spun. I flew through the doorway and crashed into the hard-packed dirt outside. When I raised my head, the barn had become a solid wall of fire, orange and red and terrible. Emmett's voice had gone silent. That was 3 years ago, the year 1865. The war had just ended, but mine had only begun. I still heard Emmett screaming every night when I closed my eyes. August 1868, day 1. Gunfire tore me from sleep. Before the sun touched the horizon, 3 riders, black cloth covering their faces. They were putting bullets through my windows like they wanted to erase the house from existence. I rolled off the bed and hit the floor, grabbed my Remington 44 from beneath the pillow, crawled to the window. Glass shards bit into my palms as I rose just enough to return fire. One rider jerked backward and tumbled from his saddle, dead before he hit the ground. The other 2 wheeled their horses and fled toward the gray dawn. But before they disappeared over the ridge, one of them hurled something into my yard, a rolled piece of paper tied with black string. I waited until the hoofbeats faded into nothing. Then I walked outside, rifle raised, eyes scanning every shadow. I picked up the message and unrolled it. Sell the land. You have 10 days. After that, you die. No signature, no name. But I knew who had sent it. Colonel Absalom Croy, director of the Union Western Railroad Company. He was laying iron tracks across Wyoming territory, and my ranch sat directly in his path. Croy was not a man who accepted obstacles. He removed them. Day 2. Morning. Bitter Springs called itself a town, but that was generous. A general store with windows so dusty you could barely see inside. A saloon that smelled like spilled whiskey and broken dreams. A church that nobody visited. And a sheriff's office where justice went to die quietly in the corner. I pushed through the door without knocking. Sheriff Burl Gideon sat with his boots propped on the desk, dealing cards to himself in some game only he understood. 2 strangers occupied the corner, watching me with the flat, patient eyes of men paid to watch. Someone attacked my ranch this morning, I said. Put 3 bullets through my window, killed one of them. The other 2 escaped. Gideon did not bother looking up. You see any faces? Covered. Then there is nothing I can do for you, Kane. I understood. Gideon belonged to Croy. The whole town belonged to Croy. The railroad company paid half the population in wages. The other half kept their mouths shut out of pure survival instinct. Speaking against Croy meant losing everything. I turned toward the door. Gideon's voice followed me like a bad smell. Hey, Kane, word is, your well is running dry. This drought, cattle die fast. Real fast. Maybe you should sell that land while there is still something left to sell. I did not answer. I walked out into the dust and the brutal sun. Behind me I heard the whispers start up like flies around a corpse. That is him, the one who let Emmett Holloway burn. Heard he did it on purpose, wanted the whole ranch for himself. Cannot trust a man like that, just look at him. 3 years. They had not forgotten, neither had I. Day 2, afternoon. Refugio met me at the ranch gate before I could dismount. He had worked my land longer than anyone else in the territory. 55 years old, hair gone silver, hands tough as old leather from decades of hard labor. He was loyal beyond any reasonable expectation. His face told me something was wrong before his mouth opened. Patron, he said, the North Creek. They blocked it. Who blocked it? Croy's men. Showed up this morning with wagons and timber. They say the creek belongs to the railroad company now. Built a dam right across it. The ground shifted beneath my feet. That creek ran along the edge of Lakota territory. It fed my cattle, it watered their camps, blocked that creek, and everything on both sides would wither and die within 3 weeks. My 200 head of cattle would not survive. The Lakota would suffer just as badly. Croy was not just trying to force me out, he was trying to strangle everyone in the region into submission. I had two choices laid out before me: sit here and watch my entire life turn to dust, or cross into Lakota territory and find another source of water. Both paths led toward probable death, but only one of them gave me any chance at all. Day 3. Early morning. I rode alone past Black Ridge. As the sun climbed high and merciless above the plains, I knew the risk I was taking. The Lakota had killed white men for far less than trespassing on their land. The treaties were paper, the hatred was real, but I had survived 4 years of the bloodiest war this country had ever seen. Shiloh, Antietam, Gettysburg. I had watched friends die by the hundreds. Death and I were old acquaintances. I was not afraid of dying. I was afraid of dying without putting up a fight. They appeared without warning, 8 warriors on painted horses, rising from behind rocks and bushes like spirits summoned from the earth itself. Before my hand could reach my Winchester, they had formed a perfect circle around me. No escape in any direction. One of them spoke English, clear and precise. "Your weapon. Place it on the ground. Move very slowly." I had no choice. I obeyed. They bound my wrists with strips of rawhide and led me deeper into their territory. Day 3. Late afternoon. The Lakota camp shattered every image I had carried in my mind. There were no proud warriors wearing eagle feather headdresses, no great fires crackling with songs of victory, no sounds of celebration or preparation for war. What I saw was hunger. Children sat in the dust with sunken cheeks and eyes far too large for their faces. Women moved through the camp in exhausted silence, their steps heavy with despair. Men watched me pass, but their expressions held no hatred, only the bone-deep weariness of people who had run out of hope. The drought was killing them as surely as it was killing me. The blocked creek was a slow death sentence for everyone on both sides of the invisible border. The warriors brought me to the largest teepee in the camp. Inside sat an old man with long hair white as winter snow and eyes hard as flint. Chief Iron Feather, 62 years of survival carved into every line of his weathered face. He sat straight-backed despite his age, radiating a quiet authority that demanded respect. "You crossed onto our land," he said. His voice was low but carried the weight of mountains. "You know the punishment for that." "I know." "Then why did you come?" "Because staying where I was meant certain death. Crossing into your territory at least gave me a small chance." Iron Feather studied me for a long moment, the way a man studies a tool he is considering buying. "You were a soldier in the Great War between the white men." 4 years. The war ended 3 years ago." "War never ends," Iron Feather replied. "It only moves to different ground." "The bargain." Iron Feather raised one weathered hand. 2 women emerged from the shadows at the back of the teepee, guiding someone between them. A figure wrapped completely in black cloth, walking stiff and slow, as though every step forward required tremendous effort of will. "This is my daughter," Iron Feather said. Something new had entered his voice, something heavy and painful. "Her name is Ayanna. 3 winters ago, the teepee where my wife slept caught fire during the night. My wife died in those flames. Ayanna survived, but the fire took half of her face." He paused, drew a long, slow breath. "Since that night, my people look at her and see a curse. They believe she carries bad spirits. No warrior will take her as wife. No one will come within arm's reach of her. Some have whispered that she should die, so the dark luck she carries will leave our camp with her." I looked at the figure in black. She stood completely motionless, silent as carved stone. "I have a bargain for you," Iron Feather continued. "Take my daughter as your wife, carry her away from this place, away from the people who fear her. In return, I will grant you rights to the spring that flows through the center of our territory, good water that never runs dry. And when Croy brings his men against you, my warriors will ride at your side. And if I refuse this bargain, then you die here in the dirt and your bones will feed the crows. Croy will take everything he wants. My daughter will eventually be killed by her own frightened people, and my tribe will be marched to the reservation lands to starve slowly instead of quickly." The silence between us stretched tight as a bowstring. "I want to see her face," I said. Iron Feather gave a single nod. Ayanna raised her hands slowly, deliberately, and unwrapped the black cloth. The right side of her face was a landscape of devastation. Scar tissue stretched from her forehead to her jaw, red and tight and twisted. One eye had gone clouded and pale, damaged beyond repair. The flesh looked like melted wax that had hardened in cruel patterns, but the left side of her face remained untouched. High cheekbones, skin smooth as polished copper, an eye dark and deep as a mountain lake at midnight reflecting distant stars. But her beauty was not what stopped my breath, it was her expression. There was no fear in that face, no desperate plea for mercy, only a calm, patient waiting. The look of someone who had learned to expect rejection as surely as the sunrise, someone who had been turned away so many times that hope itself had become a foreign concept. In that moment, I did not see a stranger standing before me. I saw Emmett burning in the barn. I saw the fire I could never escape. I saw my own reflection in her damaged eye. I accept your bargain. Day 5. Morning. I brought Ayanna back to the ranch beneath a sun that hammered down without mercy. Refugio stood frozen when he saw her climb down from the horse. His eyes went wide and the color drained from his weathered face. Virgil Pruitt, my other hired hand, spat a stream of tobacco juice into the dirt, turned on his heel and walked away toward the stable without uttering a single word. She is my wife now, I announced to anyone within earshot. If anyone here has a problem with that arrangement, you are free to collect your wages and leave. Refugio shook his head slowly, but doubt clouded his eyes like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Virgil said nothing at all. That silence should have been my first warning, but I was too focused on other threats to notice the one sleeping under my own roof. Day 5. Night. I gave Ayanna the small bedroom at the back of the house. It was spare but clean, fresh sheets on the narrow bed, a window that faced east toward the distant mountains. I will sleep in the room next door, I told her. If you need anything during the night, just call out. She looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. For the first time, something like surprise flickered across her features. You will not? No, I said firmly. This is an arrangement, a business transaction, nothing more than that. She studied my face for a long moment, searching for the lie. Finding none, she gave a single small nod and closed the door between us. I walked to my own room and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the wall, wondering what kind of life I had just agreed to build. Day 6. Ayanna worked from the first gray light of dawn until the stars emerged in the black sky, cooking meals over the iron stove, scrubbing floors on her hands and knees, mending the broken fence posts out by the north pasture. Her hands moved with practiced skill, quick and efficient, knowing exactly what needed to be done without being told. Refugio approached me near the well around midday, keeping his voice low. Patron, she knows many useful things. Where did she learn all this? She worked as a translator for the army before the fire destroyed her face, spent 3 years in their camps, learning English, learning white man's ways. Ayanna and I did not exchange many words in those early days, but small things began to accumulate between us, like sediment building up along a riverbank. Each morning I left a bucket of fresh, clean water outside her bedroom door. Each evening I found my torn shirt mended with perfect stitches folded neatly on my chair, no words attached. At supper she prepared food seasoned with spices I did not recognize, flavors from a world I had never entered. I ate every bite and asked no questions. It was not love. It was not yet trust. It was simply two wounded people slowly discovering that the other was not entirely a stranger. Day 7, noon. The dust cloud announced their arrival long before the sound of wheels reached my ears. Colonel Absalom Croy descended from a polished black carriage that looked absurdly out of place in this harsh landscape. 58 years old, silver hair swept back like a lion's mane, black vest buttoned tight despite the punishing heat. He moved like a man who believed the entire world had been created for his personal convenience. Behind him rode Sheriff Burl Gideon with his tin star catching the sunlight. 8 hired gunmen flanked them, hands resting casually near their holsters, and one more man, Jasper Holloway, Emmett's younger brother, the man who had blamed me for his brother's death every single day for 3 years. Now he stood at Croy's right hand like a faithful hunting dog, waiting for a command. "Mr. Kane," Croy said. His voice flowed smooth as honey mixed with slow poison. "I hear congratulations are in order. You have taken a wife. How charming." Ayanna watched from behind the window curtain. I could see her silhouette, could see the way her hand tightened around the broom handle until her knuckles went pale. State your business, I said flatly. Your land sits directly in the path of my railroad. You know this already. I am prepared to offer you $8,000 in cash, a generous sum for such a modest property. Not for sale, at any price. Croy's polished smile faded several degrees. You have 3 days remaining of your original 10. When that deadline passes, I will stop making offers. I will simply take what I need. He turned to walk back to his carriage, but Jasper Holloway stepped forward, blocking my path, his face twisted with old hatred. My brother burned alive because of you. Jasper's voice was cold enough to freeze running water. Now you take a savage woman into your bed. You do not deserve to keep breathing. Emmett died in an accident, I replied evenly. I tried to save him. Lies. Jasper's shout echoed across the empty yard. You let him burn so you could steal everything for yourself. The whole town knows the truth. Everyone knows what you did. I held my silence, not because Jasper was right, but because I had no way to prove my innocence when I could not grant myself forgiveness. How could I convince anyone else when I still saw Emmett's burning face every time I closed my eyes? Croy seized Jasper's arm and pulled him back toward the horses. 3 days, Mr. Kane. Consider your position very carefully. Next time I come, I will not come to talk. The carriage rolled away in a thick cloud of dust. I watched it shrink against the horizon until it finally vanished beyond the ridge. Day 8, 2 in the morning. The first gunshot shattered my dreams like a rock through glass. I grabbed my Winchester and ran outside barefoot, the cold dirt biting at my heels. The stable had become a pillar of fire, flames clawing up toward the stars, turning night into hellish day. The horses inside were screaming. 5 masked riders circled the house, pouring lead through every window. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like angry lightning. I saw Refugio lying on the porch, clutching his right shoulder, dark blood seeping between his fingers as he tried to drag himself toward cover. I dove behind the water trough. Splinters exploded near my face as bullets chewed into the wood. I rose just enough to take aim and squeeze the trigger. One rider threw up his arms and tumbled backward off his horse, landing hard in the dust. Then I heard the deep boom of a shotgun behind me. Ayanna stood framed in the back doorway, my 12-gauge greener pressed tight against her shoulder. Flame erupted from the barrel. A second rider flew off his mount like he had been kicked by a giant invisible boot. You can shoot, I observed. My father put a rifle in my hands before I learned to walk, she replied. She broke open the action, ejected the smoking shells, and reloaded with smooth, practiced motions. The remaining 3 riders fled into the darkness, their horses' hooves pounding against the hard earth like drums of retreat. But the stable was lost. The fire roared too hot and too wild to stop. 4 good horses died screaming inside those flames. The sound of their agony would join my dreams alongside Emmett's voice. The collapse, the blaze painted the entire sky in shades of hell, orange and red and hungry yellow, the flames dancing and reaching toward the stars. I was kneeling beside Refugio, wrapping a strip of cloth tight around his wounded shoulder when I heard the breathing behind me. Fast, shallow, wrong. I turned and saw Ayanna standing motionless in the middle of the yard, staring at the burning stable with empty eyes. The shotgun had slipped from her fingers and lay forgotten in the dirt. Her entire body trembled like a leaf caught in a violent wind. Then she began to speak, Lakota words spilling out in a voice I barely recognized. Higher, wilder, the sound of someone drowning in a nightmare they could not escape. Ina! Ina! Mother, mother. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the ground, hands pressed hard against her skull, and screamed, a raw, broken sound that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her throat, from somewhere in her past. I ran to her, but she was not here. She was not standing in my yard watching my stable burn. She had traveled 3 years backward in time, into the night her mother died in the flames. She was living it again, feeling the fire eating her skin, hearing her mother's last cries. I dropped to my knees in front of her, used my body to block the firelight from reaching her eyes. Ayanna, look at me. Ayanna, I need you to look at my face. She did not respond, did not hear me. Her hands clawed at her own cheeks, leaving red marks on her skin. Ayanna, the fire is out there. The fire is behind me. Here, right here in front of you, there is only my voice. Only me. I repeated those words over and over, calm, steady, the same tone I had used with terrified young soldiers at Gettysburg, boys who had never witnessed death before it exploded in their faces. 10 minutes passed, 15. My knees ached against the hard ground. Sweat dripped down my face from the heat of the fire. Still, I kept talking, kept blocking the light with my body, kept my voice level and low. Finally, inch by inch, her trembling eased, her breathing slowed, her wild eyes found focus. She looked at me and actually saw me. "I am sorry," she whispered. Her voice sounded broken. "Never apologize for that. I see fire every night too, in my dreams, every single night." She looked at me then. For the first time since I had met her, there were no walls between us, no defenses, just two damaged people recognizing each other in the dark. "Emmett?" I nodded slowly. That night she did not return to her separate bedroom. She sat by the low fire in the kitchen, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the embers. I sat in the chair across from her. We did not touch, we did not speak, we simply existed in the same silence, two people who had walked through fire and somehow kept breathing. Day 9, and deep in the night, she broke the silence first. The fire started in the cooking teepee. Nobody ever discovered why. My mother was inside preparing food for the next day. By the time we saw the flames, the whole structure was burning. Her voice came out flat and distant, as though she were describing events that had happened to another person in another lifetime. I ran inside to pull her out. The roof collapsed onto me. The flames, they ate into my skin like something alive and hungry. I could smell my own flesh burning. When I finally woke, my mother was ashes, and everyone in the tribe looked at me like I had become a ghost. Something terrible and wrong. She stared at the glowing coals. "They say I carry fire inside me now, that anyone who comes too close will burn." Silence filled the room like smoke. I stared at the embers for a long moment, letting her words settle into me. Then I spoke. "Emmett Holloway was my partner for 6 years. We built this ranch together, board by board, post by post. That night I stayed late in the main house, working on account books by lamplight. The oil lamp tipped over somehow. I still do not know if I accidentally knocked it or if I fell asleep and my elbow struck it. When I opened my eyes, the barn was already an inferno. I forced the words past the tightness in my throat. Emmett ran inside to save the horses. They were valuable animals. Our whole future rode on those horses. I ran after him and found him pinned beneath a fallen beam, his legs crushed. I pulled on that beam until my hands bled, until my muscles screamed, until I thought my spine would snap. The beam did not move 1 inch. I looked up and met her damaged eye. He told me to run, to get out while I still could. The roof came down a second later. Something hit my back and threw me out through the doorway. I landed in the dirt outside. Emmett never came out. Was it your fault? I do not know. Maybe it was, maybe it was not. But the cold truth is that I survived and he did not. That weight will ride on my shoulders until the day I die. We are alike, Ayana said softly. We lived when others died. We carry fire inside us that can never be put out. I nodded. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I did not dream of Emmett calling my name from inside the flames. Day 9, morning. Dakota arrived at first light with 6 Lakota warriors riding behind him. Ayana's younger brother, 24 years old. Quick temper and suspicious eyes that looked at everything white with barely concealed hostility. "Father sent us," he announced. "Croy attacks you today. He attacks us tomorrow. We share the same enemy now. Our fates are tied together. 6 warriors will not be enough to stop what Croy is bringing. I know. There is another place where we can find more guns." Day 9. Afternoon, Silver Creek Mining Camp. A miserable collection of rotting tents, collapsed shacks, and bitter men who had been chewed up and spit out by Croy's railroad company. Croy had purchased this mine 2 years earlier. He immediately fired most of the workers and forced the rest to labor 16 hours a day for wages that barely bought bread. Anyone who complained disappeared. Anyone who tried to organize found themselves at the bottom of a mine shaft. Esteban Montoya met me inside a ruined supply shack, careful to keep his voice low. Former foreman, 48 years old. A thick scar ran across his face like a river drawn on a map. "Croy murdered my younger brother," he said, "pushed him down a shaft and called it an accident. 14 men watched it happen. None dared speak the truth, but they remember and they want justice. I need men who know how to fight, men who are not afraid of blood. 15 of us stand ready. We have rifles. Ammunition is short, but we will make every shot count. It will be enough." Day 10. Midnight. Nay, I was sitting at the kitchen table, cleaning my Winchester by lamplight, when I heard the hoofbeats approaching. Single rider, no lantern, coming slow and careful. I drew my revolver and stepped out onto the porch. Stop right there. Show yourself. Lower the gun, Silas. I came alone to talk. Jasper Holloway. He dismounted and walked forward until the moonlight revealed his face. Something had changed in him. He looked tired, older, worn down by something heavier than simple hatred. Why are you here? To warn you, Croy knows your entire plan. You have a traitor sleeping under your roof. My heart seized in my chest. Who? Virgil Pruitt. He has been reporting to Croy from the very beginning. Every movement you make, every person you meet, every word you speak, Virgil, 2 years eating my food, sleeping under my roof, taking my wages, and all that time feeding my secrets to the man who wanted me dead. Why are you telling me this? You hate me. Jasper stood silent for a long moment, staring at the ground. I followed Croy because I believed he would help me destroy you. I wanted revenge more than I wanted anything else in this world. But the deeper I went into his organization, the clearer I saw what kind of man he truly is. His voice dropped lower. Last week, Croy ordered his men to burn a small Lakota camp north of here. Not a war party, just families. Women trying to cook breakfast, children playing in the dirt. He called it clearing the path for progress. Did you participate? No, I left before they struck the matches, but I heard the screaming afterward. Heard it all the way from the next valley. Those screams sounded exactly like Emmett. Heavy silence pressed down on both of us. My brother would not want me to become this thing I have become. I breathed deep, letting his words sink in. What will you do tomorrow? I will ride with Croy. I have no other choice. He would kill me if I simply disappeared. But when the shooting starts, I will aim slower than I should. My bullets will find dirt instead of flesh. Jasper mounted his horse and turned to leave. Jasper, I called after him. Emmett died in an accident. I swear it on everything I have left. He did not turn around. I know, Silas. I have known the truth for a long time. I just needed someone to carry all my anger. He rode away into the darkness, swallowed by the night. Day 10, 3 in the morning. I found Virgil Pruitt in the temporary corral behind the burned stable, saddling a horse by moonlight, running away before the storm broke. Going somewhere, Virgil? He spun around. His face went the color of old bone. Then his hand darted to his belt and came up with a knife. He lunged at me. I sidestepped the blade, drove my fist hard into his jaw. He dropped like a sack of grain. I planted my boot on his chest and pressed the muzzle of my revolver against his sweat-slicked temple. How much did Croy pay you? $500, he gasped, blood streaming from his split lip. 500 to report everything. 2 years eating my food, sleeping safe under my roof, calling me boss, and you sold me for $500. Every fiber in my body screamed to pull the trigger, to put a bullet through his worthless brain and leave him for the coyotes. But Ayanna appeared in the doorway of the main house, watching silently. Killing him changes nothing that matters, she said. I breathed through my teeth, lowered the gun, bound Virgil's hands and feet with rough rope, and dragged him over to Montoya's men. Keep him tied up until this is finished, I ordered. Then he walks away with nothing but the clothes on his back. No horse, no gun, no boots. If I ever see his face again anywhere in this territory, I will not show mercy a second time. Day 11, dawn. Croy descended upon the ranch with 45 guns at his back. Sheriff Burl Gideon rode proudly beside him, his tin star catching the first rays of sunlight. An army of death coming to collect. But when they reached the ranch yard, they found it empty. Quiet, not a soul in sight. Croy frowned from atop his expensive horse. Search every building, find them. The first shot split the morning air like thunder. Esteban Montoya lay prone on the charred skeleton of the stable roof, his heavy Sharps .50 caliber rifle pressed against his shoulder. One of Croy's hired gunmen flew backward off his horse with a fist-sized hole punched through his chest. Then hell itself erupted from every direction at once, from behind the water trough, from the rock pile beside the old well, from the burned stable walls, from positions we had prepared through the long hours of darkness. 22 guns against 45, but we had chosen the ground. We had waited in silence. We struck from angles they never anticipated. The air filled with thunder and smoke and the screams of dying men. Montoya took a bullet through his shoulder but kept shooting, working the Sharps action with one bloody hand. Refugio, his own arm wrapped tight in bandages, brought down 2 riders with his Henry repeater. Dakota and his Lakota warriors flowed through the chaos like ghosts, arrows, and rifle fire working in deadly harmony. Ayanna crouched at my side behind the overturned wagon, the greener 12-gauge ready in her steady hands. Each time she fired, she counted aloud. 4, 5, 6. Why do you count? It keeps my mind from freezing. Each number is one less man who can hurt the people I love. Sheriff Burl Gideon attempted to flee on horseback when the battle turned against his side. Dakota ran him down like a wolf chasing a rabbit and dragged him from the saddle. This is the land of my ancestors, Dakota said, standing over the terrified lawman. His knife flashed once in the sunlight. Gideon did not rise again. The final moment, Croy retreated into the main house with his last 12 surviving men, barricaded the doors, took cover behind the thick log walls I had built with my own hands. I advanced from cover to cover, using a wooden barrel as my shield. Croy, it is finished. Your men are dead. Come out now and this ends. His voice floated through the shattered window. Not quite finished yet, Mr. Kane. I still have one card left to play. The front door swung open. Jasper Holloway stepped out into the morning light, his pistol pressed hard against Refugio's gray temple. The old man's face was pale with fear. Jasper, the man who had promised to shoot slowly. I understood instantly. Croy must have discovered his hesitation, must have forced his hand at the last moment. Jasper had no choice until this very instant. Lower every weapon, Croy commanded, stepping out behind Jasper with a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Or I start executing prisoners one at a time. I looked at Jasper. Our eyes met across the blood-soaked yard. Years of hatred and misunderstanding passed between us in that single glance, and something else, something that looked almost like an apology. Then Jasper moved. He spun away from Refugio, raised his pistol, fired once. The bullet punched through Colonel Absalom Croy's chest and exited through his back in a spray of crimson. The railroad baron fell, his eyes wide with disbelief, dead before his expensive boots touched the earth. Jasper turned to face the remaining gunmen inside the house, but they were already shooting, already getting their revenge for their fallen employer. 3 bullets struck Jasper in rapid succession. His body jerked with each impact. He collapsed onto his knees, then fell sideways, landing beside the man he had just killed. I charged forward, emptying my revolver's cylinder as I ran. Dakota and his warriors swept in from both flanks. Montoya fired from the rooftop until his rifle clicked empty. In less than 2 minutes, no enemy remained standing. The battle was over. The morning fell silent except for the groans of the wounded and the distant calling of crows. Farewell. I knelt beside Jasper in the blood-soaked dirt. His shirt was drenched dark. Each breath came shorter and more painful than the last. Why? I asked. Why did you turn? Debt. Paid in full, he whispered. Blood bubbled at the corner of his lips. Emmett, he forgave you the moment he told you to run. He forgave you with his last breath. I was the one who could not let go. He gripped my hand with the last of his fading strength. Tell my brother, when you see him again someday, and tell him I am sorry for everything. Jasper Holloway died in my arms as the sun rose golden and red over Black Ridge. 1 week later, the ranch rose again from its own ashes. Miners from Silver Creek hauled timber and drove nails from dawn until dark. Lakota warriors carried logs from the northern forest. Refugio, his arm still wrapped in a sling, directed every movement as though he had never been wounded. Montoya made a decision to stay. I have no home left to return to, he explained. Perhaps I can build a new one here. Virgil Pruitt was released as I had promised. He walked away without horse, without gun, without boots, without a single possession except the clothes on his worthless back. I never learned where he went. I did not care enough to find out. The creek flowed free once more after we tore down Croy's dam. The cattle drank deep and began to recover their strength. Chief Ironfeather visited the ranch for the first time in 5 years. You kept your word, he said to me, studying the new construction rising around us. My daughter lives. She protects herself well enough. I merely stood beside her. Ironfeather watched Ayanna across the busy yard. She was laughing at something Montoya had said, helping him wrap fresh bandages around his wounded shoulder, speaking Spanish words she had picked up from Refugio. That is my daughter as she existed before the fire touched her spirit, the old chief said softly. I believed I would never see her smile again. He mounted his horse and looked down at me with something that might have been respect. You are a good man, Silas Kane. Emmett Holloway would say the same thing. He rode toward the distant hills and did not look back. Dakota approached me before he departed with his warriors. He extended his hand. I took it. His grip was firm and honest. We were enemies once, he said. Perhaps we are something else now. Perhaps we are. He nodded once, released my hand, and led his men toward their home. That afternoon, I walked to the small hill behind the house. Two wooden crosses stood there now, casting long shadows in the golden light. One marked Emmett Holloway's resting place, where he had been buried 3 years past. The second cross was freshly made, the wood still pale and unweathered. Jasper Holloway, born 1828, died 1868. He found his way home at the end. I stood between the two graves for a long time, hat in my hands, letting the wind wash over me. He saved my life, I said to Emmett's grave. In the end, he remembered who he was supposed to be. He died trying to make things right. The wind stirred the dry grass. No answer came from beneath the earth, but standing there for the first time in 3 years, the weight on my shoulders felt just a little bit lighter. Sunset. Ayana found me sitting on the porch as the light turned gold across the valley. In the distance, I could see railroad tracks being laid by fresh work crews. Union Western had not stopped just because Croy was dead. Companies never died, only men did. They will send another man to replace Croy, I said. The railroad does not surrender easily. Then we fight again, she replied, as many times as necessary. Does that not exhaust you? Ayana turned to face me fully. For the first time since I had known her, she smiled, a small smile, crooked. Only half her mouth moved properly because of the scar tissue, but the warmth in it was absolutely real. I have been exhausted for years, she said, but now I have something worth staying tired for. She reached out her hand. I took it. Her fingers were calloused from years of hard work and warm from the fading sun. It was the first time she had reached for me. The fire did not claim us, she said softly. No, not this time. We sat together on that porch, hand in hand, watching the sun sink slowly behind Black Ridge. The sky burned orange and red and gold, colors that once would have sent ice through my veins and panic through my heart. Now they only marked the end of one day and the promise of another. The war was not over. It would never truly be over. More railroad men would come. More land grabbers would come. The world would keep spinning its hard bargains and cruel deals, but I was no longer standing alone in the fire, and sometimes that makes all the difference.